Hi, Alan. Thank you very much once again for joining me for episode 7 of Interesting Chats with Alan. Insightful conversations about coaching. And today, this wonderful theme that you came up with today is coaching and the role of change. And
Yeah,
that's there's so many things that we can chat about, and there's so many things because change is the only consistent in life, and it's how we
mm,
handle it, and
yeah,
in a coaching context in itself is so positive. So I'll let you start off
yeah.
and kick us off.
Okay. Thank you, CD. And it's indeed a great pleasure to be on another call with you. And seven, they're growing, they're having babies. So that's a good thing. So yeah, a change, an interesting point here, and certainly we've dealt with a few topics that are more foundational. So we looked at what is coaching about, getting a greater understanding of what coaching could give to people in general. We've also spoken about looking at ways to select somebody who would be useful if you made the decision to engage a coach in your life. And so I think moving to looking at change and how the role of coaching would play in that, I think is probably important because we can share quite a lot of different elements to that discussion that will help people to understand where some of the challenges are going to come from. So I think that a good starting point is for us to, and actually it's interesting that I'm going to talk about it within one of the most negative environments that we've had to live through in the last year, and moving into 18 months already of that, which is the pandemic. And we have all had to deal with change. I mean, the most powerful in this world has had to do that, and therefore I think right now we are starting to understand some of the difficulties of change. So it's a good time to tap into the resources that we have around how difficult it has been for people to change, and how much easier it might have been for others. And therefore, I think we can start to maybe dine out on a bit of what's been going on before we start moving into some of um, the challenges that will happen when you take a coach on.
Yeah.
So, what do you say, CD?
Yeah,
How do you feel about change?
I've started calling it the panorama, not the pandemic anymore. Just because, yeah, but it is so true because yeah, I mean, you look around the world and you look at different countries and you look at different
Mm,
areas and look at different leaders and you look at all the different scenarios that have played out around the world over one consistent thing, right?
mm,
And on the one side you get a lot of versions of people's reactions to it,
mm,
and it's exactly like you said, you've got that the people that adapt, that follow sort of the health protocol,
mm,
new the normality that they've created amongst themselves, to take the responsibility to look after themselves and others. You get
mm,
the people of the view that it's no big thing for me. You're infringing into my space and to my rights and all these kind of things.
mm,
Therefore, I'm still going to deny it, and I'm going to still do what
mm,
I want to do. And you've got people that are sort of sitting in the middle of those two spaces, and adapting themselves almost to depending who they talk to. um
yes.
and I guess you, you know so I think the first point here is that it's almost like we we're not ever going to be going back to what we had before. um
Mm,
and it is futile to resist that, right?
yes.
And in a coaching context, you know, and I think this is sort of where I find a lot of people um, deny the impact of coaching, because what you've got to do to change is to
Mm,
confront the person or that thing or that thought or that process that's holding you back
mm,
from what is going forward. And that comes in a lot of forms, I guess. That
mm,
comes in the forms of what your cultural biases. It comes in the form
yes.
of where you grew up. It comes in the form of your education, and it comes in
Mm,
the form of certain traumatic events that happened into your life.
mm, mm,
And I guess the starting point for me then, if we're talking about this kind of change, is really
mm,
confronting. confronting yourself, and putting your ego in your pocket and going, right, is what I'm doing really good enough? Is it what I'm doing the best for myself and my surroundings? And can I do better? And then making the decision, what exactly do I need to change
Yes.
what the current situation is into an opportunity and a gift.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Great.
that's sort of where I would start.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that you made a very important point here. This, I've just noted it, not going back to where you were before. And I think that is a critical acknowledgement of how you actually process change in the way that you're going to do it. So I think it is the starting point of um, I'm not going to go back to where I was before. Therefore, I have to put my focus on where I'm going to be in the future. And then obviously there's the current reality as well. So how does that impact upon both? So if we just move away from the pandemic, because that is a change, probably the masterclass in change in itself, yeah, panorama, and look at it just from a coaching point of view. And because you and I spend a lot of time talking about the role of the brain, neuroscience, as part of the methodology that we use, I think it's something that we cannot avoid to just mention a couple of points. So I'll just throw them in and we can have a quick discussion about it.
Yeah.
I think that it's what I want to say that we to understand change better, we also need to understand um, the brain's organizing manner. So it's the principles of the way that the brain actually organizes itself. And we know that the brain is there in a very autonomous way. Actually, it does everything because it's very automatic. And therefore, things just happen without you having to, press a button or do anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So all habitually based, got very strong hard wiring in a lot of places, make it very difficult for people to change. So they embark upon a coaching journey and then all of a sudden realize, oh my goodness, I've got all of this stuff that I can't get rid of, literally. And then the other thing I think is that we have to acknowledge the role of the reptilian brain. So, the whole idea of, and not to confuse people, but an example would be that when we were in caves many, many centuries ago, we had to focus on the reptilian brain for our survival. And so you walked out of your cave and, the minute you went there, you were putting yourself in danger of being, attacked by predators and all sorts of things happening. Excuse me. So that is what we know today, and a lot of people would have heard this and understand it, is the flight and fight kind of situation.
Yeah. So yes. So in that context, and it's like you said, people realize. So the brain is a hardwiring machine. So change doesn't come as simply, the first point of change would be a thought, changing the way you think. That's easy in an initial point. I think it becomes a little bit more difficult when you are working towards bringing permanent change, because your hardwiring is permanent. What you're actually working towards in change is to create stronger neural pathways that actually dominate the old neural pathways, because you're never going to get rid of certain thoughts, of certain beliefs or certain biases and so on. There's always going to be something down at the bottom there that triggers you to go back to almost what's traditionally a comfort zone. And if you had to sort of analyze it, and in the context of the difference between training and coaching, in training you're directing a certain set of knowledge to people, and you're sort of putting it out on the table, and this is how you should be, this is the skills you need, this is the information, here it is, laid out in a structured kind of way, there you go, right? that is not going to initially change a person. There might be one or two things in there that people go, oh, right, I find this useful. This is not something I know. Makes a new neural pathway very quickly, because it is something that that didn't exist before. It is something new, and it's, that pops up. So, that's quite easy to do. But if you're trying to fundamentally change the way you function, right? If you want to take something that is old and make something a new truth, that's going to take some time, because again, you're going to have to go through those habitual things to make sure that the wiring is stronger. And that's where coaching helps, and that's where sort of working with somebody in a coaching context, you've got certain checkpoints that you're going through with people to reflect of what their thoughts are. And sometimes you remind people that they're going back to that old original way of thinking and that old original way of being, where you're trying to be here. And even and that takes, again, a lot of discipline, but with that discipline comes the change and the empowerment that comes with that. So it reminds me a little bit of that. People are unconsciously competent in certain areas of their lives, good or bad, right? And even if you want to fundamentally change the way you want to do things, your subconscious is going to throw out certain old habits automatically that come into play. And that's why you need to work through those phases of levels of understanding to get the new wiring into the unconsciously competent side of things, so that it doesn't throws your brain throws that out automatically rather than the old habit, right?
Yes. So these are all really, I think, truisms when it comes to somebody embarking on a coaching journey. So if your coach is not telling you that, or not telling you, rather helping you to understand that, that's a better way of putting it, well, then, you may be in the dark, or you might even feel very threatened by the whole idea of change, because research has shown that it is very difficult for us to change. We just have things so, that it's the comfort of the brain that does everything automatically. And we realize that actually this is now, it's been there for a long time, sometimes for, decades. Now, all of a sudden you want to change this, and that becomes a difficult situation. So there are some emotional, I would say, triggers that we have once we move into that coaching conversation or that coaching relationship. And so if we're talking to coach and people who potentially want to receive coaching, that they need to understand that is something that will happen. It's going to be in their current reality as they move into it, and maybe try to understand what they can do about it. So the first thing you can mention here is, first of all, the fear of change. So immediately I say I want to be different, but I'm really terrified of actually doing anything about it. So that's one point.
And then, and like what popped up for me there is, let's take in that in a real life kind of context. Along with the panorama, we've had quite a lot of societal change and a lot of societal, like the Black Lives Matter movements and certain things that have come to the fore and have almost forced conversations into a different direction. Now let's narrow that more down, probably into scenarios that you might have faced at work. You've in any kind of job environment, or any kind of, whether it's the law, whether it's accounting, whether it's hospitality, whether it's retail or anything, there's always this line of assumptions or things that get communicated as a culture that go down the line, right? Every now and then you get somebody that comes in and challenges those cultures and challenges the norm and challenges those things. And, if you look even historically, a lot of these people were chastised, well, is like my Afrikaans English came through, but a lot of these people were basically pushed out of the society for being, and you get it in the work environment, all of these kind of things, and a lot of these people are challenged and pushed out of the way of thinking, because you got an outside of point of view that's actually challenging this bias that's formed a thread through life and everything like that, and therefore push that person out, because there's almost like a fight reaction from your brain, because your brain's telling you, no, look, this person's challenging your subconscious. It's going to take a lot of energy to change that challenge. But somewhere in your mind, you actually know that this person's telling the truth, right? And that's where that recognition
triggered by danger. It's danger. The brain, from a reptilian point of view, is saying you are in danger, and therefore you will respond precisely the way you've described it.
Yeah. Now the problem is that your reptilian or your emotional brain is not actually the best part of your brain, right? It's not the one that creates the clearest thinking, and it's not actually the one that you should be driving your thought process through. That sits in a different area of your brain, and that's the area of your brain also that needs to be developed, and that area of your brain actually gets developed in a few ways. One of them is coaching and being a positive space and working towards the vision all the time. The other one is almost like in the area of meditation, or becoming aware of your surroundings, and becoming aware of your feelings and how you currently is, and becoming aware of your senses, and becoming aware of the way where your body is reacting at that very second. That's actually the space that you need to be functioning in. So what you need to realize around change and everything like that is that this feeling of fight, flight, or freeze, whether it's the feeling of aggression, or whether it's a feeling of fear of wanting to go away, or whether it's a feeling of just sitting there and doing nothing, that's actually an indication that you need to open your mind a little bit, and open your thought process to perhaps to the opportunity to learn something, and to learn something that might become a gift of opportunity for you, right? Exactly for that reason, because your reaction is not based on a pure thought process. It's based on an attack on what your rationale is, right?
Yes.
And like I said before, your thoughts are not necessarily your own. What you believe might be the truth, might be something that was told to you 1,000 times, but it might not be the reality of what is actually going on around you. So that's if you take that back to having an open heart and an open mind, that is actually what it means. Having the awareness of realizing, okay, right, I need this is my emotional brain talking to me, labeling that, and being able to calm yourself into the awareness, and being open to what is actually in front of you is sort of the key to what's going to instigate that change, and being open to that is very important.
Well, it does open up a forum for you to understand better, what are the things, because a lot of people don't know this. So they would go into coaching and don't know what's happening to them. And therefore they can't pinpoint where the reactions are coming from. So therefore there is almost an educational side to it, helping people to understand. And hopefully the coach will do that through the process, that these are the reasons why you may feel this way. And just talking on the point of motivation, I think that's also quite important to recognize, because there's sometimes a misunderstanding of what motivation is about. And if we look at it from an intrinsic and extrinsic perspective, a coach can never really succeed if it's carrot and stick. So that, we know that's not going to happen. So everything has got to focus on the inner resources of the individuals and particularly the coachee, to be able to actually move forward with change. Intrinsically, I want this change to happen, and therefore the focus of the motivation, and using Neuroscience Institute's David Rock et al. Model of moving to a toward state. So taking away people from fear and moving them, because fear, carrot and stick, that's fear, moving them towards a toward place. And when they're there, they are more able to articulate what it is they really want and to manage that change, because it needs to be managed.
And it's it's interesting because that's exactly what it is. And you're creating a vision, and that's the first point in the towards state, and then you structuring, working towards that vision, which then it gets broken down into actions, which then
Mm,
become habits.
mm,
So that's the process that you need to follow. Now, funnily enough, and and this is also a conversation I've been having lately, and we actually talking to someone in our next session
mm,
about coaching and how it looks in an organizational structure.
very fascinating.
Yeah, and for me, um, if you want to, there's that saying, if you want to do things if you want things to be different, do things differently. I think
Mm,
there's a big opportunity for people right now, especially in organizations, and as we come back to whether it's right now as we're going through all these changes, or and getting ready for what's on the other side, and being flexible, and already having that habit of being open to it,
mm,
and having that awareness in people of quietening the emotional brain. You know, perhaps it's the best time to look at the coaching culture
mm,
in your organization.
mm,
We met each other in 2009 when we started
mm.
this journey, and we worked together for in a space then where a coaching culture was established, and
Yes.
it if you think back about it now, I mean, that was probably about, if you think, oh, it's now 12 years, probably 12 years ahead of its time, right?
Yes, it was
If you think,
groundbreaking at
yeah,
that time.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
was like, and for me, and we had a conversation before about, like you and I chatted about why am I doing what I'm doing now versus
Mm,
what my background is. And I
mm,
explained that my background is a little bit of a combination of the two, and I was lucky enough to be part of that program in
mm,
2009. So coaching's sort of been part of my life for a while, but now I've had the opportunity to actually really make it part of my DNA, and educate and introduce people to it. So the point is that, why not tap into to people's full brain, and get
mm,
everybody
mm.
involved in really buying into a vision and knowledge and culture, and making it their own, by allowing them to process it in a way that is not driven by, like, the carrot and the stick, that's not driven by a salary,
Mm,
that's not driven by anything, but driven by sort of like
mm.
a bigger purpose. Because
Yes.
if you know your how, or if you know your why, the how becomes easy. I'm using all these quotes right now, but that's sort of, if you want permanent change, that's the way to do it.
Mm,
It's and
yeah.
it's and you can work on it yourselves, if you do a lot of work in recognizing what your real brain is and what your emotional brain is. But
Yeah.
that no knowing the neuroscience behind it, and all these studies and all this work that's coming out right now is incredible once you start looking into it.
Mm,
And it is really,
yes.
um, a way of a way of being, and a way of doing things, rather than trying to, you know and I understand a lot more about what, why things didn't work in certain environments, why there was resistance to
Mm,
change, why people didn't develop in the way that you expected them to develop. Um, it's all because traditionally it's very much a management, leadership, one way communication
yeah.
kind of environment. Whereas this is proving, and neuroscience is proving, and positive psychology is proving, that it's
Mm,
actually not the way it should work. It
yes.
should be
Exactly.
purely based on a clear thinking, positive,
Mm,
empowering, in a way that
yeah.
a person can make them it their own. And um, we why not now?
Yeah.
Why not now? This is like a
Yeah.
golden opportunity, right?
Yeah. We have the environment that we never thought we would ever have.
Mm.
That kind of, and that is a positive thing. Actually supports these imperatives, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So.
So, in closing, Alan, is there, just when it comes, anything here that you want to just close off and like sort of
Yeah.
end the conversation with, and perhaps I can then close that as well.
Okay, while you were talking now, I was actually thinking this thought came. And by the way, this is interesting. It is a mirror of what the coaching experience is about. This is what we're looking for.
Mm,
So as I was here listening to you, I was able to learn something. I was able to articulate something that made sense to me. So I'm going to share it. Okay.
mhm,
So a quote came back to me, which is, there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come.
mm,
And that's how I see coaching. The powerfulness of coaching is around that idea that has been swirling around in your brain somewhere. Hopefully we kind of unpack it along the way on the road. And so that idea whose time has come is the powerful thing that represents change. And
mm.
that is probably the thing I would like to leave with us for
Okay.
today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna have a hard time topping that, but I'll try. But I guess it's exactly that thing I spoke about a few times. Very often, um, you know, uh, people have said to me, "Now I don't need a coach. I'm successful already."
Mm,
Yeah, fine. And perhaps, and if I have to compare to the world as we live it, yes, perhaps
mm,
coaching wasn't needed before because your company was successful before,
mm,
or your environment was successful before, the way things work was successful before. But perhaps it's just time to take a step back and analyze what your thought process is and what your reality is,
mm.
and what you need to
Yeah,
change, because right now I think a lot of people need to change. There's a big desire for change,
yeah,
and it starts with a conversation, and it starts with confronting, confronting and making a decision whether your thought process is based on fear, or is your thought process based on clear thinking right now. Is it a fear of the change that you want to bring into your life to live a more fulfilled life? Is it a change that you might want to bring into your business to make sure that the people that are around you don't only earn a salary but a better life?
mm,
What are the changes that you want in your life that's gonna shift that forward, and how you're actually going to really make that change happen, by creating that new neural pathway. So thank you very much for
yes.
that conversation, and
Yeah, that's
it's
brilliant.
good. Yeah, it's good.
Great stuff. Thank you, CD. And so next time we will be a triad. We
Mm.
welcome Karen Borain, um, and she's going to be instrumental in helping us to understand from her expertise, which is really vast, um, some nice perspectives of how this works in organizations.
Excellent, and I look forward to that. So, for everybody that is still watching and finds this interesting, if you want to have that conversation with me or Alan, reach out to us. We're on, my main platform's LinkedIn right now. Alan, I can put you in contact with Alan as well. And yeah, we look forward to our next session, and I'll chat again to you in 2 weeks' time, Alan. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, CD. Cheers.